The platform 2 begins with a group of children playing on a stone pyramid with steps and a slide, all wearing the same clothes as the pit dwellers. The scene shifts to the residents of the pit discussing their favorite foods. One of them, Zamyatin, reveals to the interviewer at the self-management center that he once tried to burn down his parents' house while they were asleep. Despite this dark confession, he mentions his love for pizza. However, the other inmates call him out for eating the meat and pork on the pizza, saying he's already messing up despite being a newcomer. A Frenchman reminds him of the law. Everyone is only allowed to eat their own food. If they don't, they risk becoming barbarians. In the pit, a group called the Loyalists enforces these rules, protecting each inmate's food. They warn Zamyatin that if he takes someone else's food, it could start a chain reaction that leaves the lower levels starving. Those who break the law face severe punishment. Zamyatin is paired with Perempuan in his cell. She shares with the interviewer from the first film, Imogwiri, that her favorite food was the ham croquettes that her ex used to prepare. Now she is in the pit because she needs time to forget what she did and forgive herself. We learn that Perempuan worked as a sculptor. After years of hard work, her big night came at last. It was her 4th exhibition, with a series of sculptures that represented animal brutality. Her boyfriend came to see her, and he brought his son with him so he could finally meet her. One of her pieces was a beastly dog. His claws were sharp blades that faced the viewer. She refused to let the organizers establish a safety perimeter. Her boyfriend's kid wouldn't stop running, and he stumbled. One of the blades went through his eye. Following the kid's death, her work became famous and sold well. Zamyatin and Perempuan hear a commotion above them and realize barbarians are stealing food. Armed with bed frames, they fight them off. The Frenchman mentions the Anointed Ones, who met the Master, also known as the Messiah. The Master is the man who established the pit's laws, and it's said that he survived an entire month without eating on one of the lowest levels. In desperation, he cut flesh from his own thigh to feed his followers, who now spread his message of solidarity, ensuring fair food distribution throughout the pit. The next day, when the platform comes, Zamyatin, Perempuan, and the Frenchman eat their favorite food. But the Frenchman asks them to throw away the food that belonged to those killed by barbarians the previous day. He argues that keeping this food grants an unfair privilege to a few, disrupting the balance of equality. However, Zamyatin disobeys and eats it, marking him as a barbarian. Over time, Zamyatin and Perempuan become close, sharing stories of their past lives. Eventually, they are transferred to level 180, where the platform arrives empty for a month. Zamyatin falls ill due to starvation, and Perempuan cares for him. He expresses guilt over breaking the law and worries about punishment. One night, fearing he won't survive, Zamyatin asks Perempuan to tell his children that he always loved them. Flashbacks reveal that his wife and children left him before his parents sent him to the pit for discipline. In a final act of desperation, Zamyatin sets himself on fire, ending his life. Perempuan is transferred to level 51, where she explains the system to her new cellmate. Together they enforce the law and punish a barbarian. Although they weren't supposed to intervene, others had been assigned the task. They ignored warnings and acted anyway. Perempuan nearly kills the barbarian, but he pleads for his life, explaining that he did what he had to do to survive. Her cellmate shares her disillusionment with the law, calling it unfair. She recalls a time when she and a former cellmate found a malnourished young man. They gave him extra food from a dead person's dish, which led to punishment from the strictest of the Anointed Ones, Dagin Babi. He amputated her arm, prompting the other cellmate to resist and gouge out his eyes. Babi then ordered her to be tied to the platform and sent to the lower levels, where she was eaten alive. Despite her cellmate's warnings that no one escapes the pit, Perempuan remains hopeful. Her cellmate advises her to flee during the monthly reset, when a gas is used to render prisoners unconscious. She urges Perempuan to go deeper down to where the drowning dog is. Dagin Babi learns of Perempuan's defiance and punishes her by amputating her arm. Her cellmate is stripped and hung below the platform. Perempuan is then paired with Trimagasi on level 72. In the first movie, Trimagasi told Goreng that he was imprisoned in the pit for 9 months and he started on level 72. Perempuan advises him not to talk to the residents above and below them. Together they rally others to fight for their freedom against the tyrannical Dagin Babi. In retaliation, Dagin Babi and his followers throw food to ensure Perempuan and her group remain hungry, even though it condemns the lower levels to starvation. He justifies it as a necessary evil to defend the law. Eventually, Dagin Babi descends with his followers, leading to chaos. Perempuan kills Babi and asks Trimagasi to join her in escaping. He declines, saying it was the best month of his life. She then swallows a piece of the painting of the drowning dog, which contains toxic materials, which stops her from inhaling the gas that the pit's cleaners use to render the prisoners unconscious. As she loses consciousness, she recalls her cellmate's advice. When they smell the gas, that's the moment to act. The scene shifts to show the kids from the opening scene fighting to reach the top of the pyramid. The child who makes it to the top is taken away by Miharu, who whispers something in his ear. Perempuan awakens and sees as the prison is suspended in anti-gravity. She finds herself tied among a mass of corpses being taken to the bottom of the pit. She frees herself on level 333 and hides. She watches as the guards bring the child that Miharu escorted out of the pyramid earlier, and they place him in the cell. She remembers her boyfriend's kid who died because of her, and whispers that she could save him if she could turn back time. She also thinks about escaping to the surface of the pit, but she decides to save the kid, hitting her head repeatedly as she floats upwards with him, losing blood, hinting at her impending death, like Goreng in the first film. She descends with the kid into the black void beneath the pit, where dead characters approach her. A woman tells her only they can go up, referring to the child. Your journey is over, but you will have another chance. In the end, Perempuan sees the boy ascend to level 0. Zamyatin, her former cellmate, appears briefly. In a mid-credit scene, we see many prisoners descend to the black void with kids, suggesting that there may be other pits across the world. A scene from the first movie shows Goreng and Trimagasi discussing the girl Goreng saved, calling her the message. Goreng then sees Perempuan, asking him what he's doing there, and they embrace with tears in her eyes. It's implied that Goreng was the boyfriend, and the boy who died was his son.